The galaxy had prepared itself for a long war. Every projection, every simulation, every ancient precedent agreed on one truth. When a new species rose to challenge the established powers, the conflict dragged on for decades, sometimes centuries. Borders shifted slowly, fleets were built, destroyed, rebuilt again. Entire generations lived and died without seeing the end of it. That was what the galaxy expected when humanity finally said no. Humans had been part of interstellar civilization for barely a century. To the elder species, that was less than a blink. They were latecomers, clever, adaptable, energetic, but untested. They traded enthusiastically, negotiated passionately, argued endlessly in councils, and, to most observers, seemed far too emotional to survive the brutal logic of galactic politics. When the dominion of Althrex expanded into human-controlled systems, it was assumed humanity would protest, posture, and then submit. That was how it always went. The Althrex dominion was ancient, methodical, and vast. Their fleets were built on doctrines refined over thousands of years. Their soldiers were bred, trained, and conditioned for obedience and endurance. Their strategists thought in centuries, not campaigns. They did not conquer quickly, they conquered correctly. So when the Althrex emissary stood before the Galactic Assembly and announced in calm, measured tones that several human border systems would be reclassified under Dominion's stewardship for the sake of regional stability, no one expected immediate war. The human ambassador did not shout, did not threaten, did not slam fists on the polished obsidian table of the assembly. She simply said, no. The word echoed strangely in the vast chamber. The Althrex emissary tilted his elongated head, frilled crests shifting slightly. "You misunderstand," he replied. "This is not a request." The human ambassador met his gaze without blinking. "Then you misunderstand us." The assembly murmured. Ancient eyes studied the small, soft-bodied primate who dared contradict a power that had broken civilizations older than her species' written history. Still, no one expected much to come of it. The Althrex moved fleets toward the disputed systems. Not at full strength, there was no need. This was to be a lesson, not a massacre. Humanity would resist, lose some ships, lose some worlds, and eventually accept protectorate status, like so many before them. The galaxy settled in to watch the beginning of another long, grinding war. They never got one. The first Althrex task force entered the Helios Verge with textbook precision, formation tight, shields layered, electronic warfare suites humming as they scanned for threats. They found none. Human space was quiet. Too quiet. No patrols, no civilian traffic, no warning beacons. The Althrex commander felt a flicker of unease, quickly suppressed. Humans were inexperienced. Their silence was fear. Then the stars changed. Not literally, but to the Althrex sensors it felt that way. Space bloomed with impossible readings, energy spikes that did not correspond to any known weapon system, gravity distortions that formed and collapsed faster than conventional physics allowed. Before the commander could issue a single order, half his fleet simply vanished. Not exploded, not shattered. Gone. The remaining ships fired reflexively, beams lancing into empty space. Their targeting systems screamed errors. Something was there, every instrument insisted on it, but it could not be locked, could not be predicted. A voice cut through the Althrex command channel. Human, calm, almost polite. "This is the United Terran Defense Network. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. Turn around now." The Althrex commander hesitated for exactly 1 second too long. The rest of his fleet disappeared. Across the galaxy, alarms began to sound. The Dominion's high strategists demanded reports, assuming sensor malfunctions or exaggerated panic. Then a second task force vanished. Then a third. In different systems, different configurations, different commanders. Always the same result. Human space was no longer quiet. It was lethal. The galaxy expected humanity to fight like everyone else did, fleets against fleets, attrition, sieges, logistics grinding slowly forward. What they failed to understand was that humanity had spent its entire pre-interstellar history preparing for wars it desperately hoped never to fight. They had imagined enemies stronger, faster, more numerous. They had imagined losing over and over again. So they planned not for victory, but for survival, and for ending threats before those threats could grow. Humanity did not deploy fleets in neat formations. They did not hold territory the way the Althrex understood territory. Instead, they turned space itself into a weapon. Their ships did not announce their presence with massive energy signatures. They hid in folded dimensions, in gravitational shadows, in regions of space-time deliberately made unstable to outsiders, but navigable by Terran navigation algorithms refined through brutal trial and error. They did not fight battles. They erased capabilities. Althrex shipyards went dark overnight. Not destroyed, disabled at the molecular level, their machinery locked in perfect, useless stillness. Command relays began transmitting contradictory orders, human cyber warfare having rewritten Dominion protocols so subtly that no single error could be identified. Supply worlds found their atmospheres unaltered, their populations unharmed, but every heavy industrial process permanently inoperable. Mines refused to function. Reactors shut themselves down in ways that defied engineering logic. Humanity was not conquering. They were turning off the war. The Galactic Assembly reconvened in emergency session less than 3 standard cycles after the first incursion. Panic was no longer whispered. It was shouted. Representatives demanded explanations, demanded restraint, demanded that humanity be sanctioned, censured, restrained before the conflict escalated. The human ambassador listened patiently. When finally given the floor, she spoke softly. "We told you no," she said. "You assumed that meant we would fight on your terms." An elder species representative leaned forward, voice trembling. "You are dismantling the Dominion in days. This is not war. This is annihilation." The ambassador shook her head. "No, annihilation would be easy. This is containment." As she spoke, reports flooded in. The Althrex Grand Fleet, their ultimate deterrent, never before deployed in full, had assembled near their core worlds. Thousands of capital ships, millions of crew, enough power to crack planets. They never fired a shot. Humanity did not attack the fleet directly. Instead, they changed the space around it. Gravitational constants shifted by fractions of a percent, enough that Althrex inertial compensators could no longer synchronize. Communication lag increased from microseconds to fatal delays. Formation integrity collapsed as ships found themselves drifting, colliding, tearing each other apart under stresses their designers had never considered. Human ships appeared only briefly, ghost-like silhouettes flickering into existence to deploy devices no one could properly scan before they vanished again. Within hours, the Grand Fleet was a cloud of disabled hulks, trapped in a region of space that no longer obeyed the rules it had been built to survive in. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This was supposed to take generations. Instead, it was over before most citizens even understood it had begun. The Althrex Dominions sued for peace. Not after years of devastation, not after the loss of their homeworlds, not after rebellion and collapse. They surrendered because they realized something terrifying. Humanity had not even tried very hard. The terms were simple. All occupied human systems would be returned immediately. The Dominion would dismantle its expansion doctrine and submit to monitored demilitarization along human borders. No reparations were demanded, no territory claimed. Only one condition was non-negotiable. Never, the ambassador said, assume that we because we talk are weak. The war, if it could be called that, ended almost instantly. In its aftermath, the galaxy struggled to understand what it had witnessed. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no grand parades broadcast across the stars. Their fleets returned to whatever hidden depths they had come from. Their diplomats returned to arguing trade routes and cultural exchanges as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But perceptions had changed forever. Ancient species that once dismissed humans as reckless upstarts now studied Terran military theory with a mixture of awe and fear. Younger civilizations looked to humanity not as conquerors, but to something far stranger, a species that could end wars before they truly began. Historians would later identify the core misunderstanding. The galaxy believed war was about winning. Humanity believed war was about stopping the next one. That belief shaped everything they built. They did not design weapons to destroy cities. They designed systems to make war impossible. They did not seek glorious battles. They sought decisive moments where the outcome became inevitable. So when the galaxy expected a long war, when it prepared itself for centuries of bloodshed and ruin, humanity simply reached out, rewrote the rules, and ended it, almost instantly. And from that day forward, whenever a powerful empire considered expansion, whenever fleets gathered and strategists spoke confidently of inevitable victory, there was always a pause. Someone would remember. Someone would say quietly, "Be careful, that's what they thought about the humans." And the stars would remain, just a little while longer, at peace.